Good evening, everybody.
Let's give everybody a few minutes to come in. If you are watching this later on the recording, make sure you go over to smallarmsolutions.com. I just made a major markdown on an item that we have listed there. If you're interested, all the details are there, and it's quite an expensive bundle for a good deal.
Good evening. Nebraska.
Yes, let's please get it out of the way. Everybody go ahead and report on your
What is this?
location so that he can go through it. He's got to get it out of his system before we actually start to get into some
Hey,
real
let's see where
questions
everybody's
here.
from.
Hey, Jeff.
Ohio, Georgia. Oh, California. Somebody's behind the lines. Virginia. Motor City.
Sorry if I seem like I'm out of breath. We actually just finished filming for the day. Like literally, we
We just
ran
did
from
3.
this and then set up for Q&A. So it's a little hectic right now. For our regulars, you know that this is the time of year that I usually, so that I can spend time with my family for Christmas. And we have 4 children and they're home from school, and I take off to
LA.
between Christmas and New Year's. So I've been doing a bunch of video filming and content creation to get ready for that 2-week break, so that you guys will have lots of good videos through the new year.
LA. Somebody else from behind the lines, behind the curtain.
I love that Cleveland, Ohio, but identifies a tropical island. Yeah, you're probably freezing in Ohio right now.
Oh, it's probably high 70s here today.
Look, just
Great. Not a little one can get over my obstacle.
he tries to put gun cases here that with his office to keep the puppy out, but she just jumped over that and said, no.
28 degrees. No, thank you. I don't miss that. Connecticut. Somebody else from behind the lines. Tennessee.
Thanks to Chris, I can't allow myself to spray paint my 6940.
No, I couldn't.
Ooh, People's Republic of Rochester, New York.
Wow. I know you guys had a nasty storm last night. I was talking to my mother, slippery roads, ice, snow.
Nathan, we did talk about that in the last Q&A stream. If you want to go back and watch that, we talk about that quite a bit. Actually, I think he addresses it in there. Or can I get started now?
He wants to see the Salt Terrier.
Okay, we're not bringing any dogs up. Can I get started?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to let me?
Yes.
I can tell when he's not going to let me. Okay, guys, somebody was asking to how to put a question in. Just pop it into the chat line. I will start pulling at random. I will go back up to the top. You don't have to send your question 4 or 5 times over. I do go through and weed out questions. If you would like to donate during tonight and get a guaranteed response, you can do that by hitting the $, which is the super chat function for Google. Or if you would just like to donate during the chat, you can do that. Google does take 30%, which is quite a lot of your donations. Our preferred method is DonorBox, and that link is on smallarmsolutions.com. That's easy to access, but also I'm popping it into the chat line here that you can use it and just put your question in the comment section. I'll get an email. It'll be the same thing, and you'll get priority over all the other questions that are coming in tonight. Or if you just want to donate to SAS, we deeply appreciate it. We don't take sponsorships. We don't do marketing videos. That's why our videos do not contain commercials. It's not because we're not offered and asked. It's because I refuse all of it. And I want to create content that you guys can depend on and that is verified and is not just a channel that receives a check for it. So we really are completely 100% donor funded. And right now has been, I know it's Christmas time and everybody's struggling and it's been extra hard on us over here because donations have been down so much. But we appreciate you for joining us, and we're gonna get into it. Yes, we are still on Patreon. In fact, I'm probably going to release. We have a video done on
Python.
the Python, the new versus the old, and it's done. It's locked and loaded. So I'm going to release it tomorrow to Patreon if you're at the $5 and up level, and then in a couple days it'll go up to everybody else. But just to incentivize and say thank you to the people who are on Patreon. That's we are completely donor funded, as I said. Matthias on DonorBox, thank you, Matthias. He said, hello from Michigan. I am doing a M16A5 concept build with the Voltar VIS quad rail and an A5 buffer system. Any recommendations for a medium profile 18-inch barrel and a barrel mounted folding front sight?
Well, it's interesting you're asking about that because the A5 concept was a standard 20-inch barrel. Well, for as far as I'm, the 18 inches, I'll definitely go over to Maya Leclerc over at Centurion Arms. He has a beautiful recce barrel. In fact, there's one sitting right in the floor behind me, which I can't show you. But that's a 18-inch recce barrel. That's probably where I would go. We also have a discount code for you too.
Mark on DonorBox, he said, great job on the JFK series. The green screen was well done. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was my first time doing it, and it was definitely baptism by fire, but I think it turned out pretty well. I wonder if that would be a good way for Chris to do videos on guns he can't get. The M60 comes to mind. Chris, you can answer this, but we are going to be using the green screen again. In fact, we've talked about using it for some other videos too. So it will be brought back out. But
it's a thought. Like I said, it's really hard not having stuff in front of you. It's extremely hard. And traditionally, people don't like to watch videos where you're just talking. You don't have anything to actually show. We'll have to think about it.
which means I'll have to harass him, put my heels in and dig in like JFK, which he likes to remind me, but I did it. I was like, but it took me a year. He goes, but I did it.
That's right, I did.
Do you know of anyone who can make furniture for a Valmet in 76? Mishko warns that the original plastic stocks break easily.
He's right, and I have no idea. There were so few of those rifles brought into this country that I just don't. I mean, obviously, if you're looking for wood stocks, I'm sure you could take it to anybody who's a good carpenter and they could duplicate it. But for as far as a place to buy that stuff, like I said, those were, God, that was 1994 before when the last ones of those came in. So I have no idea even where you even find spare parts, or some of the magazines are very hard to get.
Adnan, thank you so much for your donation
Thank
on
you so much.
DonorBox. And he doesn't have any questions. He just wanted to donate.
But we'll watch for you.
I'll keep out. And if I miss something, just email me. Thoughts on the DPMS anvil?
I have to look at the. I know an anvil from CMMG. I don't know the DPMS anvil. Let me take a quick look. In fact, DPMS hasn't even been in production for quite some time.
Well, I'm trying to help you out, but this new iOS that downloaded is really messing me up with my speed. That's when you know you're getting old, when they change technology and you're like, wait, what is this? Why did they move the search bar to the bottom?
It's an AK.
Yeah, I just
I'm
got
sorry, I've never seen one. That's a good one for my buddy William or Mishiko over there. He's a guy who you might want to ask about that. I've not seen that yet. No, I'm sorry.
How do you feel about the Knights Armament 6.5 Creedmoor, and what AR-10 lowers are compatible with their upper receivers besides Knights?
Well, they make beautiful guns if you can afford them. LMT uses the exact same lower receiver. There was a time when Aero Precision was using that pattern. Let me see. Diamondback was using that pattern. I'm sure there's other ones, but they're sort of escaping me at the moment. But yeah, the original, what they call the AR-10 pattern, not the DPMS. Those are probably the ones that come to mind the most. But LMT is probably the best way to go.
Thank you so much, Frank. He says for the live chat and thanks for the videos. He liked JFK. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Daniel on DonorBox. Thank you, Daniel. I've heard from another YouTube channel that the internal piston AR-15 typically prolongs the life of the bolt lugs when compared to piston AR-15s because of the gas dumped into the expansion chamber from the gas tube. Gas key relieves some stress by pushing against the bolt lugs when they are locked in the barrel. Is this true?
No. The opening stroke on an external piston version is significantly more violent. That's why you get the gouging the cam pin slot. So yeah, I don't know who told you that, but that is not true. It's the external piston is much more jolting to the system. That's and more violent in the way that it opens. So no, that's not true at all.
Sean says he's not an iPhone fan at all. I like my iPhone. I just hate when they change the iOS, and I'm just like completely clueless. Like the Safari function right now is really like doing my head in when I'm trying to like quickly, do something so you're so used to doing, and they completely, literally put it upside down. Rawless on DonorBox, thank you. Colt and FN AR barrels are reappearing with only about a $20 difference. Which would be the better choice?
It really depends. If it's a standard button rifle barrel, I would probably go with the Colt. If it's a Colt Hammer Forged barrel, the FN, absolutely. FN makes both. They make the standard button cut and hammer forged. Um, Pretty much their military contracts have to be button cut, and everything else is hammer forged. So if you can get yourself a hammer forged FN barrel, by all means.
Sorry, like she's trying to rip the tape off of your gun case, and now she's using them as an obstacle course, and she almost got wedged in between two of them. Sorry, she's distracting me. Ed on DonorBox, thank you, Ed. Please list your top 3 choices for 10mm handgun. Is Tan Foglio worth considering?
They are
Did I say that right?
Tefalio.
Oh,
Um, I own a Glock 20, and I'm quite fond of it. And what I like about the Glock 20, because it does use the polymer frames, that polymer frame does absorb some of that shock. So it will give you a longer life than, say, a Delta or something along those lines. I have to say my favorite would be the Glock 20 would be number one. The SIG would be number two, and probably number three probably would be the 1006
hey,
Smith.
hey, Ed, Don, if you're just joining
Yeah,
us,
no,
I said thank you so much for your donation. And if you have any questions, just email me or I'll try to look out for them. But thank you. Greg on DonorBox, thank you, Greg. What to look for in a quality bolt carrier group?
well, I would look for MP tested for one. I would definitely want to see a rubber O-ring in there. If it comes with the Colt Gold Spring, that's even better. I would definitely want to make sure that. Well, let me say this: the carrier key staking is not as important as people say that it is. But if they do it, you want to make sure it's done. It's done properly. Um, I would also want to test the make sure that everything's straight before you fire it. Take the bolt out, or put the carrier into the receiver, and make sure that the gas tube inserts into the key easily and it's not bent. You want to make sure of that. Um, I tend to like like the chrome plated the bolt carriers that have chrome plating in them rather than the nitride. So, but again, I'm also a fan of the entire chrome. I have to say, we're going to be doing a video at some point in the near future on the Young Manufacturing chrome carriers, the new ones that they have with the HS bolts, HM bolts, which are really a good enhancement. I have a rifle that we're going to be doing another video on. It's a custom one I had Monty LeClaire do for me, a Centurion Arms with my selected parts. I've been testing the new Young Manufacturing chrome plated carrier in there. I made some changes. I put one of the Springco extractor springs in it. I did put a Springco ejector spring in it just to boost everything up on it. We're going to be talking about Young Manufacturing chrome plated carriers, but there's a lot of good carriers out there. As I said, I'm not as bought on the nitride. I do prefer the chrome plated or chrome carriers.
And we do have a series on bolt carrier groups. It's a 3-part series that covers a huge array of bolt carriers and finishes
Mhm.
and all of that. And there's master lists on each one of those videos in the description that links to Small Arm Solutions. And Now, granted, this was done before, 2020. There's links to where those are sold. Of course, I'm sure most of them are out of
Oh, no.
stock, but the information's there, and you can check that out. It's a good master list for each one of those videos. Hey, Steve, thank you so much, Steve.
Thank
Let
you.
me know if you have any questions, and I'll pull them.
One more carrier, if you do decide you want to go with the nitride, take a look at Facts and Firearms. They make a really nice nitride carrier group.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'll try to see if you have a question too.
Carry, aim low.
I'm Canadian. How can I legally export my civilian tobacco C8 to the US before it gets banned?
You can't. Unfortunately, the way ATF is set up with importing guns, they will not import them from Canada. It absolutely sucks. I would absolutely love to have one of those myself. I've been looking for years for a 20-inch tobacco barrel. Um, God, I wish I could say send it to me, but unfortunately, um, because of the import restrictions put on by the U.S., not Canada, but by us, uh, we can't get them through here. God, I wish you could.
Reynaldo on Donor Box. Thank you. I bought a new 20-inch barrel 223 wieldy with barrel extension from a high profile barrel maker, but it would not accept a Forester Go gauge or chamber, any 223 or 5.56 ammo. The barrel maker told me that it was my receiver that was out of spec. Is that correct? I did not think the receiver had anything to do with headspace. I tried several bolts, but nothing works.
The only way that would be a problem is if either your threads were too long or your notch, the index notch, was cut too deep in the receiver. If it was cut too deep, that would cause everything to be, yeah, that would cause a failure. That is a possibility if it's not locking up properly. I would try a different upper receiver. Again, those dimensions are critical for as far as the overall length. Like for instance, if it wasn't enough, you could put shims on it, but if it's too much, that's a problem. And if it's too short, you could add shims to it, but you shouldn't have to do
Sean's offering to accept the tobacco. He won't tell. He says.
that.
John on Donor Box. Thank you, John. I just found a guy with a
Brett,
brand new inbox comp M2. Any guess what it might be worth? I'm building a clone Mark 18
say that
motto.
again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You gotta stop reading the chat and
No,
listen.
I wasn't.
I just found a guy with a brand new inbox comp M2. Any guess what that might be worth? I'm building a clone Mark 18 motto.
As much as someone's willing to pay for it. Um, a lot of these outdated things, it depends on who's looking for it. If you're looking for somebody who's not building a retro, it ain't worth that much because it's an older technology. I really couldn't give you a price on that because, like I said, I mean, again, it's worth as much as somebody wants to pay for it.
Can you install a regular AR-10 upper on a SIG I-716 tread lower receiver?
I believe those are proprietary, so I do not believe so. I can't tell you 100% sure, but if I recall, those were proprietary upper and lower receivers.
Is specialized armament a good place to buy a Colt upper?
Quality wise, yes. Cost, no. His prices have always been extremely high. You can find if it's a stock Colt receiver, you can find them on Brownells and Arms Unlimited. The same thing's a lot less expensive. Now, if it's something that he's custom done, which he does have things that he custom does, yeah, they will be more expensive. Um, he does the utmost high quality work. He has generally 100% Colt quality parts, good Colt parts, but he's always been on the expensive side.
Why doesn't the military utilize all Mount 203 launchers and do away with the M4 cuts on barrels?
Well, once the military does something, it's very difficult to get them to change. Right now, as much as all of the M4 or all the M203 has been replaced officially, by I think it's the M320, I believe it is. Um, they're still out there. So, quite frankly, there's no reason for them to change because, quite frankly, having the cut on the outside of the barrel makes no difference in accuracy or anything like that. If they were going to SOCOM barrels, I'd love to see them get rid of the notch cuts for those. For the 203. That is one of the failure points for destruction testing. But to get anything changed in the U.S. military is a freaking act of Congress. If it's not a problem that's affecting the gun, they're not going to touch it. They're just going to leave it like it is.
Tad says for your next green screen use, you can do Reagan's shooting. Yes, it's not as cool as JFK, but the howl of Hinckley's bullet ricocheting into Reagan must have been unique for ballistics. I agree. However, Tad, he's already told me, well, I hope that people don't think that I'm going to do shootings now. And I go, why not?
This
Why not?
particular one on JFK, I know a lot about because of the fact that I worked with, and yeah, I knew the guy who was on the submission of it,
Yes,
and
but you
I
also
knew the
told me that
people.
you didn't know enough to speak on it.
I do not know enough on those ballistically because the information's not out there.
You could review the information though.
Um, I've never seen ballistic
But
reports
you're
for that.
But you can pull up ballistic reports and looked at it. You were a forensic firearms examiner. That's the point. See, he does not, Chris, I don't want to say low self esteem, but he kind of does have a little bit of low self esteem when it comes to like, he doesn't think that he can, handle, certain things. And I'm like, why not? You're the only YouTuber in this industry that really has been a forensic firearms examiner, who's written armors manuals, who's worked in the industry, that can actually speak on things as an expert. That's why we sit and do these live chats when other people don't really necessarily do them because they can't.
There was never any controversy around the Reagan one. I'll have to look into it, but like I said, the reality is the information is not out there on a lot of these other assassinations, just like the Martin Luther King assassination.
Ed says, easy, Heather, easy. If I was easy on him, y'all wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have Small Arm Solutions as a business. We wouldn't have this YouTube channel. And you know what else you wouldn't have? You wouldn't have Black Rifle 2, because I convinced him to write that book. He told me that it needed to be updated. And I said, well, there's nobody better to do it than you. You should do it. He goes, I can't do it. Or you're crazy. No one's going to listen to me. Nobody's going to want me to write a book. I made him write that book. And so when he put a little dedication in the entry of the box, well, of course you should. I'm the reason why you have Black Rifle too, because he always is like, no, I can't do it. So there's always kickback, and I just have to, gently nudge. But also, there's a lot of, ego brushing too. I'm constantly telling him how great and wonderful he is. You guys know that when we're on here. Other than he can't help the fact that he wasn't born in Texas, and he wants to be a Texan. But in all other rights, you are absolute
Yes,
AR
in
god.
Italy,
You are a
In
genius.
Italy, I made sure she remembered you're not Italian. I am.
Yes, it takes a good woman to push her man to do good. Yes, I've always pushed him to like go with it. When you wanted to leave forensics and go for cult, and literally he lived in Connecticut while I stayed with all of our kids in New York, and he'd be gone all week. I pushed him to do it because I knew that it would make him happy, and I knew that he would be amazing at cult, and he
She's
was.
tougher than an Air Force drill instructor.
Yeah. Wait, what did you tell me, that I need to be like a interrogator at
My wife's
Guantanamo
true
Bay?
calling, people don't really understand. My wife's true calling was to be an interrogator at Guantanamo Bay. That's what her true profession should have been.
That's why, like with 4 kids, nobody can lie to me. Nobody can get anything over on me. And he'll look and he'll just be like, how do you do it? Like, how did you know? I was like, I know. And even the dog, like when he goes to run out and decides he wants to go for a joyride through the neighborhood, and Chris, he's like, no, Levi, stop. I just look at Levi and go, get your butt back in this house right now. And he stops and turns around, and my husband's mouth will be like open. I'm like, how do you even do that? I go, I don't know. I just. What pistol would you buy being a left-hander in uh, California?
Well, most of these pistols, it doesn't. They're totally ambidextrous. I have to say, one of the ones that I would want if I was left-handed would actually be a Beretta M9 or 92F series because of the way those suckers eject. They eject to the side. They will not hit you in the face. Even you look at Glocks. I'm right-handed, and I get hit in the face with cartridge cases from those.
Chris better not leave the toilet seat out.
If you also look at even the M18 to M17, those do quite well. You don't get hit in the face with press from those. Pretty much any handgun these days is ambidextrous. But one of the things that always stands out is the Beretta, just because of the fact that those put them in a nice, neat pile, probably it's around 3, 4 o'clock, so you don't get hit by those.
Thank you, Barry. He says people love the crime videos, and I see a subscriber boost from such presentations. Yeah, it definitely, um, it, appeals to a different audience, which is what I was hoping for. I love it. I think, and JFK, I'm so proud of. I'm so proud of him for JFK. I just thought like it was engaging and entertaining, and a lot of really good information in there. I learned a lot filming it. Do you see any longevity problems with a single screw retaining the gas key on a POF 308?
I have lots of questions on longevity of the DIP, the Revolution, for as far as the way there are several parts that are on those. Um, it would cause some concern to me without seeing some kind of documentation that shows testing on it, because there are two screws on there for a reason. There are several parts of that rifle that do concern me. The size of the bolt, the locking lugs on there, for instance, how thin walled they are. I have a lot of concerns about the Revolution.
What is your gut feeling on Oswald being U.S. or foreign hired, incentivized?
I have no idea. To be honest with you, I've never looked into that aspect of the assassination just because of the fact that I'm a forensics guy, and that's what what I did when I was in forensics. I dealt specifically with the firearms evidence. Everything that happened before that, I had nothing to do with.
You're not
So I
interested to
never.
know?
Oh, I'm interested to know, sure, but I really have no idea. I do not think it was the Russians. The Russians did not like him. They didn't even want him to stay there. They were anxious to get him out of Russia, even though he was offering to give them, vital U.S. intel because he was in the Marines. He was in communications, and he had a government clearance. They didn't even want him. So something tells me I don't believe it was the Russians.
It's always interesting to know what motivates them to do stuff like that.
No, and there's your conspiracy, and that's what they're trying to cover up.
And it's also just people who, you know, are crazy. Yeah, like Lee Harvey Oswald was a very odd person and not definitely the brightest. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
like since you just like we want an explanation, and sometimes there probably just isn't one.
yeah.
Add on wants to know regarding the gas key for an LMT VCG for either their MRP or MWS line. Does it have a particular sealant adhesive that makes the gas key with the groove section of the top of the bolt carrier group? Also wondering if Colt did something similar for the gas key for their BCGs. Supposedly, I heard only a select few companies within the AR industry provides the feature of their own particular BCGs. One of them happens to be Knight's Armament. Most others just torque down the screws and stake the gas key, but don't utilize any sealant.
U.S. mil spec requires during assembly that a gasket sealer is placed around the gas port on the carrier, and then the carrier is installed. The screws are torqued at 50 to 58 inch pounds, and it's left to cure for 24 hours. That is a U.S. mil spec. Now, Colt does that, and LMT do that. I know because I work for both companies. They follow the U.S. military specifications. Basically, what that's for is it takes several rounds to get a good carbon seal because, again, you have two pieces of metal that are mating. There will be some kind of gaps in there. When you fire, you get the carbon that gets in those areas and it forms what's referred to as a carbon seal. This basically makes it so you don't have to worry about the carbon seal. It'll be perfect right out of the box. And then, of course, as time goes on, you get the carbon seal, no problem. It is a additional step. What's sort of funny about it is it's simple, stupid. The old erasers that you used to get used when you were a kid in school, they used to fit over the top of the pencils. The round area, they would take that, they would dip it in the gasket sealant, and they would just put the dot around the gas port, and that's what they would do. Those of you who have my armor's manual, it shows you that procedure, because of course, since I work for military manufacturers, that's what we taught. That's what's in my manuals and all the manuals that I did for all the different manufacturers. But it's true, most companies don't do that. It's an additional step, and since the military doesn't require it, it's a, there's no requirement for it. It's additional step that they don't bother with. Is it necessary? No, but for a military gun, it's a good idea.
What is your opinion on Delta ARs?
Well, it's sort of funny. When I was younger, I thought they were the greatest thing in the world until I went to write my book. And I was talking to a couple of the engineers who worked back in that day when they released the Delta H bars. Colt used to advertise those were hand selected barrels for accuracy. And he told me no, they weren't. We just pulled them out off the H bar line. We put the accessories on them and sold them. So they really were just match H bars that they just put the accessories on. and there was nothing special about the guns. After that, my excitement for them sort of dwindled, went away. But yeah, I remember when this engineer told me, he goes, "Those were not hand selected."
Is there any reason that the military hasn't cut down every single detachable carry handle in inventory?
We have war stock that goes back, which you will still have, full size carrying handles. You don't modify. It's a total waste of time and money to modify an upper receiver. You just replace it with a new one. You wouldn't cut those down. That would be a total waste of time and money. You just replace it with the flat top upper receiver. But we still have war stocks of A2s, I'm sure. I mean, how the Air Force up until 10 years ago still had war stocks of the original Model O1s and their original M16s. They do still exist, even though they're very rarely used.
How important is the staggering of M-lock slots on a handguard? Does it make a very big difference in handguard strength and rigidity?
No, not at all.
How is the two-piece gas ring on the LMT bolt better than the standard three-piece gas ring?
It's much stronger. You're using stronger. The standard gas ring is just basically beer can aluminum. The ones that LMT uses, Knights also uses those. Those are a much better. They last a lot longer. If you go back to the original SOCOM days with the SOT mod, one of the changes that they did was the McFarlane gas rings. It's just basically a one-piece ring that spiraled all the way around, and that was a more durable gas ring than the current ones we have as well. But yes, they are a better gas ring.
What is the best buffer for the 18-inch barrel rifle gas carbine tube?
It depends on the individual barrel. The U.S. military, when Colt built Mark 18s for them, they were provided with H buffers. That was all that was needed because the barrels were lightweight barrels. There was no need for anything heavier. If you were to go to one of their new FBI profile ones, that's at least an H2 and maybe even an H3. I believe when we had the one here that I test fired, I had an H2 on it, but the actual ones that were with the original were H buffers.
Where can I find a Colt lower?
Well, last time I saw Arms Unlimited had some. That's probably the only place that I can recall.
Sorry, that's his blood sugar monitor saying that his blood sugar went up. Any advice on gas block roll pins that keep walking out?
They're telling me that your gas hold pins are wallered out or your roll pins are need to be replaced. If you're using spring pins, they need to be replaced. If you're using the actual roll pins, that means they've been taken out one too many times. They're wallered out, and the only way to fix that is to re-drill them with a slightly larger drill bit and get oversized pins and replace them, which is pretty much something you have to have a gunsmith do. This is why I say if you buy a gun that has a drilled and pinned front sight base, leave it alone. Don't remove it because if you do remove it and you try to pin it back in place again, you're risking wallering out those holes and those pins walking out. You're also risking having them front sight canted. Those are not meant to be removed.
What do you think of the new non-reciprocating charging handle for the SCAR 17?
I sent an email over to them and see if they could send me one for me to take a look at it. That was one of the biggest things that the Scar 16, Scar 17 had complaints about. People didn't like the reciprocating charging handle. They're a little bit late, and it's unfortunately a very heavy expense to if you want to switch over to it.
You're gonna love this one. Some of the ballistic science is just hocus pocus.
Uh,
Speaking
mm,
from somebody who's not a forensic scientist,
yeah,
that's funny that
no,
you say that.
this was not. Um, what happened that day was very, very clear cut and very scientifically proven over and over again. There was nothing hocus pocus about that. It's the hocus pocus comes from the people generally who have
Some
no
people just don't
experience
really
in
want
it.
to listen to it.
Yeah, there's people that again you could have somebody come in there and say, "Yeah, I did do it," or whatever, and they still wouldn't believe it. And my goal was not to take people like that and switch their minds. Mine was to give people the actual facts of what happened and show how it was presented, and exactly uh, the different experiments that showed what happened. Uh, because again, that's what happened, whether people want to believe it or not. If they disagree, they're certainly welcome to disagree. But I'd love to know what they are basing that off of.
Enjoy your videos on the B&T 308. Would you recommend the 14 or 18-inch barrel if you had the choice?
Well, in a 308, I would recommend the 18. You lose too much with the 308 at 14 inches. in my opinion. I tend to go with the longer barrels on a 308. The shorter barrels, muzzle blast, and the amount of velocity that you lose, it's not worth it.
How are the M18s doing? Is it still looking good?
Well, I haven't heard anything negative. I think Sig got their shit together and got them fixed. I haven't heard anything negative recently. In fact, everything I've been hearing is fairly positive that people are liking them.
Oh, that one's a repeat question. Or we already got that one. I do roll to the top, guys. So you don't have to just keep putting it in there. I do roll to the top. Somebody said, I know that you must have fixed the smoke detectors. Y'all miss the beeping.
Mm.
I don't. I think I was going crazy that night. And then new people would come to the chat and go, smoke alarm's going off. Like, we know. Thoughts on why Colt never introduced a heavy barrel carbine to compete with Bushmaster on the old carry handle uppers?
Because Colt, the U.S. military didn't ask for it, they didn't do it. That's what it comes down to. Colt, when it comes to military guns, unless the military asks for it, they never changed it. And unfortunately, that attitude has followed them, through this day, which is why they fell behind a lot of other companies because U.S. military is not the end all in the world for as far as military weaponry. Um, Unfortunately, we're sort of more on the latter because of the fact that once we adopt something to get any updates to it that improves it is almost impossible. Hell, the M110, Reed Knight's son Trey there was saying that they had over 80 or so recommendations that they wanted to fix the rifle to because of the problems that came up. They said no, this is the way it is. It took them years to allow the M4 extractor spring to be used on the regular rifles. It's just so difficult. Uh, if we were in a different country like Canada, for instance, where it was easy for them to introduce things and for the military to accept it, we would have had better, more improved weapons now. But the U.S. military is a very difficult customer to work with when it comes to improvements. But the heavy barrel A2 was not a government requirement; it was more for the civilian market for competitive shooters and whatnot. And that's not who Colt was going after back then. No, still pretty much not.
Frank, if you're still watching, I just saw a text come through from Brandon at the gun room. He is our FFL. That 1911 he has officially shipped. So I'll have a tracking number for you later on that. But yeah, we do not have an FFL. Brandon at the gun room in Shenandoah is our
Yep.
amazing FFL guy, and he is a full-time police officer. So sometimes it takes a little bit to get stuff out, but because he's working
Yeah,
homicides and everything
he's a
else.
full time police officer, so he does his stuff in his spare time.
Yeah, but he's amazing and he's a good help for us. Clavesta on Donor Box, thank you so much. Should I run both extractor spring and O-ring in a BCG for AR-15s chambered in 5.56 and 7.62 by 39?
I would always put on the rubber O ring. That is insurance. Um, Unless you're using a 5 coil spring, I would always have the rubber O ring. And if you're using a 5 coil spring, remove the internal buffer and put the rubber O ring on there. That is insurance. That is like you're increasing your extraction force by a factor of 3.
Your M17 video was very informative. Has your view of the M17 changed since the video was put out, or do you still think the M9A3 was the best solution to update the pistols?
I still think the M9A3 because we stayed with the 9 millimeter. The M9 is one of the most proven handguns in military history. I don't believe that going to a new handgun was worthwhile when you could basically get most of those benefits with the M9A3 and then have all those enhancements backwards compatible on your previous M9s. Basically, you have parts that are all compatible. If you ever noticed, there was never an M9A2. Well, the reason why there was never an M9A2 is because that was a conversion of M9s to make them into M9A3s, which is basically welding an accessory rail onto the front. Um, all the parts of the M9A3 could be added to the M9A to the original M9. You would be able to do a retrofit. It seemed like it was a much better choice because, again, I don't believe to this day that they've done any testing to show that the M18, M17 is a better gun than the M9. If you have an original Beretta M9 against a original CP320 or M17, I don't know. The M9 is an extremely hard pistol to beat for reliability. But that's my opinion. They said they want to go with one of these, the striker fired gun. My biggest thing was never I didn't like the M17 or M18. My problem was always with the testing. They didn't do the testing to compete the Glock against the Sig, so we don't know which pistol was better. I am, I'm team what works. If those two pistols would have competed against each other in the Sig P321, that should have been the U.S. service pistol. If the Glock won over that one, then the Glock should have been our service pistol. If both of them won, that's when the competitive bidding comes down to, and whoever wins the bidding war gets the guns. That's the way this is supposed to work, and that's where my problem was. It wasn't with either of the guns; it was with the process. And I thought they gypped the U.S. soldier by not testing those guns against each other to see if there was a clear winner or if they were equal, or did they both not pass. We don't know any of that, neither does the Army, and that was what the problem was.
What are your thoughts on ARAX pistols?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because we just did an ARAC video just today.
Yes.
So you're going to be seeing a video coming up on the ARAC. We don't really talk about the pistols because it's, all this is a shorter barrel. But you're going to be seeing a good detailed video on the ARAC coming up. But it's an absolutely excellent gun. It's a wonderful firearm.
Yeah, we have 6 videos filmed this week, and we have 2 more that we're filming
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, so that then I can lock myself into my editing cave and get all of these ready to go for pumped out for Christmas and New Year's, so that you guys have lots of videos while you need to, um, escape from your family in the holidays. Like I'm sure at some point me and Chris will too, with 4 kids at home, and um, at first, I thought you were gonna take a swig of a beer, but that's just ginger ale, so we do have an item for sale. I said it at the very start of the video, but most of you guys weren't here. We do have an item for sale on smallarmsolutions.com. I've lowered the price significantly. It is a really, really good deal. It really helps out the channel. Somebody please buy it. You can email me at hbartachi@smallarmsolutions.com. Uh, yeah, go check it out. Please look at it. Hopefully somebody's interested in it. His blood sugar keeps going off. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We will see you next week.
Thank you. Have a good night.